Gears of War 2 had big shoes to fill. How do you follow up the very first Gears of War, a seminal title that came to define the Xbox 360 era? It was a game that already had such rich world building, storytelling, characters, and gameplay. When the bar is set so high, even reaching it can seem insurmountable, let alone rising above it. Fortunately, the first game did a lot to set up its sequel. Although the world building is rich, the first game only explored a small sample of it. As far as the story goes, there are even more unknowns. There are untold pasts of Marcus, his father, and Dom. Furthermore, the first game's ending indicated that there's a lot more to the Locust than it initially appeared. One of the most difficult parts of creating sequels is finding the right direction to head. The first game, by setting up all of these questions, provided its sequel a path to go down. However, having a direction and executing on it are two very different things. If Gears of War 2 didn't build upon these questions in a satisfying way and weave them into a unique plot of its own, the groundwork of its predecessor would have been for nothing. The question is, did Gears of War 2 make good on the potential that the first game established? Did it evolve the series? To both of these questions, the answer is yes, an unequivocal yes. Gears of War 2 is the prime example of how to make an amazing sequel. Gears 2 takes the already polished gameplay of its predecessor and evolves it, filling in the gaps and issues with the mechanics, and adding its own unique innovations that feel foundational for the series. The game's story hits the ground running and doesn't stop until the credits roll. All the while, it continues the stellar world building and fills out more of Sarah. In the process, the player bonds even more with the stellar characters. You could make a strong argument that Gears of War 2 is the magnum opus of not only the Gears franchise, but Xbox's first-party catalog of games as well. So let's dive into Gears of War 2's campaign and see what makes this installment so amazing. Queen Myrrah sets the stage for the story.
It began, as always, with the desire for power.
She's intimidating and confident in the Locust's upcoming victory. She has reason to be. Humans have been pushed back to the city of Jacinto, which serves as their very last defense. When she speaks of their defeat, there's a trace of pity within her voice. Nonetheless, she is resolved in her mission. She believes the humans have brought this war upon themselves.
In a way, I pity them. But humanity, as always, brought this war upon itself.
This is intriguing, and it naturally makes the audience wonder about the backstory behind this war. I like how Gears of War 2 begins how the first game ended, with this speech from Queen Myrrah. It's a nice transition that really makes the second game feel like it's picking up right where the first left off. When the game moves on to our heroes, the first thing we see is wounded soldiers on stretchers being wheeled into the hospital. The sight is a reinforcement of Queen Myrrah's words. Humanity is on the back foot, with their numbers thinning every day. Anya remarks that the Locusts are growing bolder every day. Jacinto may be humanity's last stronghold, but even it isn't safe from the enemy. The clumsy Benjamin Carmine arrives, the newest member of Delta. He's the brother of the ill-fated Anthony Carmine from the first game. The Carmine family becomes a running part of the series, with its members often biting the bullet in the line of duty. Will Ben Carmine be an exception? Well, we'll see. He's a very green recruit, which comes across from his nervousness and clumsiness. Marcus has the option of training him, or letting the young Carmine figure things out on the go. This is a clever way of weaving the tutorial into the narrative. Marcus gives Carmine his first assignment.
Welcome to Jacinto, Private. Your first order is to guard this spot. You stay here until we get back from patrol.
But sir, there's nothing here to guard.
Sounds like a good first assignment to me. Stay put. We'll be back, kid.
It's nice to see that the war hasn't tainted Marcus's wry sense of humor. Through the smarminess of his words, though, there's an undercurrent of protectiveness for the young Carmine. Marcus knows he isn't ready to go on patrol. Not just yet. Marcus, especially in this game, displays a protectiveness for his men. When they enter the hospital, sirens start to go off. The grubs are attacking the facility. The fact that they're striking a hospital, a place which symbolizes rest and recovery, really underscores how vulnerable humanity is. They're never safe, not from the Locust. Anya tells Dom that she has a lead on his Jane Doe. Dom nearly snaps when Anya hangs up.
Damn it! Kill these goddamn grubs.
There's a change in Dom from the first game. Before, he was always calm and collected. He was a tempering force, offsetting the bombasticness of Cole, the agitated nature of Baird, and Marcus's stubborn headstrongness. Here, though, we see just how much the search for his wife has worn him down. It's a bit of off-screen character change that I think works well. They rendezvous with Ty, a fierce warrior who has a presence, even in his introduction cinematic. Gears of War has a knack for establishing characters with bold personalities, and Ty is no exception. They continue on to repel the invaders. Marcus is perplexed by the raid. The Locusts are outnumbered, so it's essentially a suicide run.
Maybe they're just desperate.
What do you mean?
Maybe the light mass bomb hit them harder than we thought. Or maybe something else is going down in the hollow. I don't know.
Marcus's ponderings are good reinforcement of Queen Myrrah's statement. The first game ended with her saying that humanity doesn't understand the Locust or why they fight. Having Marcus realize that a piece of the puzzle is missing, and that the Locust might be operating off of different parameters than the Cog assumed, is subtly planting seeds for future revelations. There's more great storytelling to be found in the hospital. The squad passes by patients who have some affliction known as rust lung. Notes in the hospital speak of patients showing signs of increased aggression and paranoia. Beyond this, the hospital's imagery is intense. Operating rooms are entirely splattered with blood. Signs of surgeries far messier than they ought to be. Hospital beds too are covered in blood. The hospital didn't have the time or the staff in order to keep the place clean. It's run down and on the verge of collapse, even without the help from the Locusts in doing so. This first level then successfully establishes that feeling of decay and disorder which is emblematic of the war effort. The Gears encounter their mortal enemy, and they set up an ambush and drive them out of the hospital. The fighting moves onto the streets, where we see similar signs of disorder. Buildings are on fire, and many which aren't still smoke from prior blazes. Rusted and broken cars pile up on the sides of the road. Some of this mess was caused by the current Locust attack, sure, but certainly not all of it. After the Locusts are defeated, Dom finally gets to hear from Anya news about his wife.
The Jane Doe I mentioned? She fits the description, but... well, looks like she was released a few days ago. We don't have any info after that.
There's gotta be another lead or something, right?
I'm sorry, Dom. That's it. I'm sorry.
Damn it! Not again! I've lost her again! Ah!
This setback, even more so than the scene earlier, demonstrates Dom's mental state. His reaction is understandable, certainly, but it's not indicative of a well-composed person. He's a man that's frustrated, weary, and just about at the end of his rope. We also see a gentler side of Marcus here. He speaks softly, and he gives Dom the space he needs to process his grief.
Yeah, whatever you need. Guys, let's go.
As I touched on earlier, he really comes across as the protector of his squad in this game. So then, the scene is working double time to develop Marcus and Dom. When I discussed the first game, I talked about how the game used the economy of storytelling really well for characterization, often using a single scene to develop multiple characters simultaneously. A similar technique is used here in the sequel. The Cog mobilize to take the fight to the Locust, and Chairman Prescott gives them a rallying speech. The speech underscores that humanity, even beyond the Locust, has problems. Humanity is violent and ever warring in this world. Despite this, his rallying cry is convincing. He casts the mission to strike the Locusts at their hearts before they can destroy humanity as the most vital mission humanity has ever taken.
Soldiers of the Cog, my fellow Gears, go forth and bring back the hope of humanity!
The soldiers that have been grinding in the war machine for over a decade with no end in sight, putting an end to the war is incredibly motivating. After feeling small and insignificant, the idea of actually making a concrete difference is powerful. It's a great speech that pumps up both the Cog in-world as well as the player. When the Cog deploy, we see Dom staring at a picture of his wife. This reinforces his mental state. Despite the importance of the imminent battle, his mind remains solely on his wife. The Gears set out in massive rigs, which their drivers have all named.
Oh yeah, her name's Dizzy. And my rig's a little sweet thing, Betty. You a conscript?
I ain't got no choice once he took the lifeboat assistance. Family got the groceries, but Daddy got conscripted.
In this small interaction, the game continues to world build. We learn that the Cog is offering shelter to refugees, but only if they conscript. It shows the desperation of the Cog and how they are willing to get their hands on new recruits by any means necessary. I think the reason the Gears world feels so rich and well realized in the games is because of how no idle moment is wasted. Either the imagery that surrounds you or the casual conversations between Gears go towards fostering more of the world. Speaking of worlds, this chapter showcases the wilderness of Serra. Since the first game took place mostly in urban environments and emulsion mines, being able to experience the more rural side of the planet is truly exciting. The scenery creates an impressive sense of scale. The rock walls positively tower over you. The trees are tiny from our perspective, which sells the width of the valley. The mountains climb high just past it, and together they create a sweeping sensation. Overall, it sells a lack of control and mastery to this place. Serra may be humanity's home, but it's not your playground. This wild wilderness sets the game's tone for exploration and discovery, and it makes the player excited to venture forth into this world. This sense of scale extends to the Cogderics. These things are massive. When the fighting starts up, Marcus can only watch as mortars rain down, and Reavers come to attack the vehicles. This reinforces his powerlessness, and it's a reminder that no matter how much gumption Delta Squad has, they are still merely a group of soldiers. As they fight on, the sheer number of Locust troops they run into is truly impressive. In the first game, we mainly experienced the war through smaller skirmishes, so bearing witness to a great battle like this captures the feeling of being in a war. Scale plays a massive part in Gears 2's world building and visual storytelling, so I will continue to talk about it. Aside from great visuals and vistas, this level has some pretty cool combat segments. Amidst the chaos, Locust drones try to board the rigs and seize them. You have to fight them off your rig as well as protect your sister rigs. The Gears eventually make it to their destination, the town of Landown. Here they encounter a new enemy called Tickers. The Tickers blow up the rig behind Deltas. Ty was aboard that rig, but he managed to escape unscathed. The game is establishing how tough of a guy he is, as Marcus comments.
Marcus, is that Ty?
Yeah, told you he was tough to kill. Let's get down there, Gears.
This is more setting up for story elements later. The Gears disembark the rig. They need to clear the town, mainly of the Tickers, so that the rigs have safe passage. After some tough fighting, they reach the drill zone. They fend off a heavy Locust attack as grind lifts are being prepared to drill into the earth. Before setting out, Dom makes Marcus promise that he'll look for Myrrah if something happens to him. We see just how much her loss is consuming him. Even amidst the harrowing battles he just endured, he can't think of anything else except for her. Another wave of Locusts arrives, this time led by Skorge. He has a very intimidating design, and he establishes his power by destroying a Centaur tank single-handedly. In fact, this cutscene is very reminiscent of General Ram's introduction. He's an elite level Locust, whose presence alone is reason to flee. The Gears hurry up and board the grind lifts. Ty and Dizzy find themselves fighting off Skorge. Marcus tries to unlock his harness to help, but it's stuck. The grind lift burrows into the hollow. Marcus and the audience are left to wonder whether they survived. When Marcus and Dom land in the hollows, they link up with Carmine.
Sarge, I made it!
Rook, you did good.
I like how kind and encouraging Marcus is to the rookie here. It reinforces his natural leadership qualities. They continue fighting through the hollow, assisting their fellow Gears along the way. This is a very combat-oriented chapter of the campaign, so it's a good time to dive into Gears 2's gameplay. Because the core combat in the first Gears of War was just about perfect, the sequel focuses on two things: refinement and expansion. Let's start with refinement. The movement in Gears 2 feels buttery smooth. Apparently, the developers made dozens of tweaks to the cover system. I can't individually point any of these tweaks out, but I did notice a net improvement. This is impressive because honestly, I thought the cover system in the first game was already great as is. In Gears 2, Marcus pretty much always does exactly what I intended him to, which is an impressive feat. Cover systems can be notoriously finicky in games. There are also a couple new base abilities. My favorite is the new meat shield mechanic, where you can pick up a downed Locust drone and use them as well a meat shield. You can use your pistol while holding them. So in addition to being a cool mechanic in of itself, I feel like it gives secondary weapons more of a place within the gameplay. I actually use the snub pistol sometimes in Gears 2, where I pretty much never touched it in the first game. You can also chainsaw duel enemies, which is a really cinematic feature, and it adds to the feeling that you're playing an epic action movie. However, the best refinement Gears 2 makes by a long shot is the friendly AI. In Gears 1, my biggest frustration was just how often Dom would go down. I felt like the babysitter of a toddler sometimes, instead of feeling like I was fighting alongside a warrior. In the sequel, your allies go down far less frequently. When they die, their deaths generally make sense too. For instance, a bunch of tickers will blow up by you and Dom, or you'll be caught in the open and he'll get mowed down by 2 grinders with mulchers. It's far less of you and Dom fighting a single squad and him blindly charging forward and eating all of the bullets. What's great too is that allies can revive you now. This makes the relationship feel a lot more reciprocal. Instead of feeling like you're a chaperone, you feel like comrades who are equally helping each other out. All in all, these changes really help you become more immersed in the story and the characters you're fighting aside. However, although this system is greatly improved, there is still definitely room for improvement. Although allies can revive you, they're not great at it. There were a number of times I spammed the revive request button, but Dom ignored me even when he was only a couple feet away. This too is very frustrating, but these occurrences were far less frequent, and if I died, well, I made a mistake in the first place. So Gears 2 makes a lot of great refinements. However, its biggest strides for the franchise are how it expands the gameplay sandbox. Gears 2 introduces a host of new weapons. What's great is that the additions aren't merely new assault rifles or shotguns. The new arrivals offer genuinely different gameplay. There is a new classification of heavy weapons, consisting of the Mulcher and Mortar. These weapons slow your movement speed, and they're best used when mounting them on cover. The Mulcher offers incredible sustained damage to offset the movement penalties. The Mortar is an even more unique addition. You hold down the trigger, which increases the distance the mortars go. You're given a numerical measurement of how far the barrage will go, but you don't have a visual aid. As such, there's a certain level of guesswork with the mortar, and you have to develop a feel for it. Because of this, it feels like such a different beast in comparison to the rest of the arsenal. The Gorgon is a cool secondary machine pistol that feels like it adequately fills out the secondary lineup. My favorite addition though is the flamethrower. This is another close range option that might not be as punchy as the shotgun, but it's nonetheless excellent for blind firing and clearing rooms. Because all of these weapons feel so different to play with, it injects the gameplay with so much variety. Launching mortars at hordes of locusts feels far different than clearing rooms with the flamethrower. The same injection of variety goes for the enemy types. The enemies you fought in Gears 1 were limited, but you can't say the same for Gears 2. There are so many additions, from the tickers to the grinders to the blood mounts. Even the reavers are regular ground enemies now. I'm not going to dissect every single enemy type, but similar to the weapons, they aren't just cosmetic additions. When fighting a legion of maulers armed with shields and maces, you have to change up your strategy in comparison to when a bunch of tickers are scuttling towards you. Likewise, their presence makes the weapon sandbox even more relevant. For instance, let's take the flamethrower. I found it being one of the most effective weapons against the reavers, able to melt them super quickly. However, when you're faced with shielded maulers, the flamethrower might be harder to use. You can't burn them down fast enough before one of them slams you with their mace. The point being, the weapons and enemies create a positive feedback loop where the developers can mix and match them to create a series of unique gameplay encounters. So with both the expansion and refinements in mind, is Gears 2 a universal improvement over its predecessor? Well, not quite. There's one area where I notice Gears 2 takes a different design approach than its predecessor. The combat encounters in Gears 2 are much more front to back oriented. What do I mean by this? Well, specifically, a lot of combat areas are designed as corridors, with enemies coming directly in front of you. This contrasts with the first entry. In Gears 1, combat areas were designed more like arenas, with many of them being circular. Emergent holes were used to spawn enemies at various points, forcing you to rotate around the map. In comparison, emergent holes are almost entirely absent in Gears 2. They appear in only a few missions. In Gears 1, they appeared in just about every one. This design approach gives Gears 2 a greater feeling of forward momentum. You're always pushing forward, always going deeper and deeper into enemy territory, so it's fitting for the story. However, I personally find this encounter design less interesting than the first game. Gears 1 had a flanker be flanked feel to its fights. You would rotate around, flanking your enemies, and you would have to rotate as they flanked you. You were much more on the move, and this was facilitated further by the emergence holes. It often wasn't viable to hug a single piece of cover during a whole fight. In Gears 2, I find myself crouching behind the same piece of cover for far longer than in Gears 1. It's much more viable to just camp in one spot and mow down the opposition. Of course, there are still linear shootouts in Gears 1, and arenas in Gears 2, but the distribution feels reversed. In other words, I guess, it feels like Gears 1 did more with its limited toolbox to create variety. If Gears 2 had the same limited enemies and weapons, it would play far less interesting than the first title. However, the sheer size of Gears 2's toolbox does result at the end of the day in a far greater sense of variety. The map design may not naturally flush the player out, but a horde of clickers certainly will. Furthermore, although Gears 2's encounters are more linear, that's not to say there isn't variety in how they're constructed. Gears 2 has a more expansive set of interesting set pieces and gameplay elements, which all inject a unique and memorable flair to fights. For instance, fighting the Locust off as they try to pirate the massive derricks, or raining mortars down upon the horde to create a safe zone to deploy the grindless. There are many amazing battles and set pieces in Gears 2, and I will continue to point them out as we proceed through the game. All in all though, it's impossible to overstate just how much of an improvement Gears 2's combat is over its predecessor. It takes an amazing formula, and it evolves it into such a robust package that it somehow makes the first game feel quaint in comparison. Because there is so much fighting in the game, well, it's a darn good thing. Speaking of fighting, let's return to the story as our Gears battle through the Hollow. As they fight, there is something rumbling deep within these caves. Delta needs to discover the source. They run into a creature known as a rockworm. With their hard exterior and hip height, they serve as the perfect cover. The worms are attracted to glowing fruit that hang from the cavern ceilings, and you can shoot them down to get the worms to move. In effect, they serve as a pretty creative form of mobile cover throughout the levels. As I just talked about, this is one of the ways Gears 2 leverages a unique level attribute to foster gameplay variety. Eventually, they find the source of the seismic activity. There is a giant riftworm, so large that it fills the entire cavern. In fact, this beast is precisely what created the caverns. Undeterred, the Gears press on. As they head deeper, Carmine has some musings.
One thing I still don't understand. Have the Locusts been down here, like, forever? Or what?
This is a great question. The Locusts only appeared 14 years ago on E-Day. Where exactly have they been before that? If they've been underground for eons, what sparked E-Day exactly? For how big and bold Gears 2's storytelling is, moments like these subtly lay the groundwork for revelations to come. The Gears discover a Locust fortification, and they fight through it in search of the Riftworm. They encounter the intimidating Skorge aboard a Hydra. He emits a scream, and he makes a charging gesture with his hand. Moments later, the Riftworm bursts through a cavern wall, following Skorge and his Hydra. This is a great piece of visual storytelling. It informs us that the Riftworm is not a wild beast acting randomly. It is being commanded by Skorge. Naturally, it follows that the Riftworm is doing the Locust's bidding, and that can't be good for humanity. Moments later, Marcus receives word about Alima's destruction.
Roger that, Delta. We've also just received topside confirmation that Alima's city... The entire city has been sunk, right at your position.
Anya! It's a giant worm! They're sinking cities with a giant worm!
Marcus puts together the Locust's plan. They're poking holes around Jacinto, and they plan on sinking the city with the Riftworm. Delta makes their way through the ruined city. The visual storytelling here impresses the stakes of the story upon the player. Here, we see a preview of the consequences if the Riftworm succeeds in sinking Jacinto. Gears 2's storytelling is efficient, leveraging squad dialogue and visual storytelling heavily to bolster the story's moving events. The Gears get pinned by the Locust, but they are rescued by a soldier who can't be mistaken for any other, the Cole Train.
Nobody plays this game like me! Nobody! Cole! In the flesh, baby!
He was separated from Baird and his jumpmate Tanner, and this gives the Gears a new objective. They need to find the missing men. This is another demonstration of Marcus's character. Without hesitation, he cancels extraction to find his men. He prioritizes the safety of individual Gears above all else, and this will continue to be demonstrated throughout the story. At this point, I was overjoyed at Cole's return, and I eagerly awaited reuniting with Baird. Delta just doesn't feel right without them. Carmine and Ty are likable enough, but I think it just goes to show how iconic Baird and Cole are. Their shoes are impossible to fill. The squad soon finds Tanner, but he's already dead. Fortunately, Baird is still alive, and they discover this even before laying eyes on him. His yapping echoes through the prison.
About time! What the hell took you guys so long?
You're welcome.
Would he be Baird if he wasn't immediately complaining? Although it's great to be reunited with Baird, his imprisonment is unsettling. Why are the Locusts abducting people and holding them prisoner? It's another piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit. The Gears come across a beast barge, a flying creature converted into a ghastly prison. It is such a weird and interesting contraption. This sort of thing is one of the reasons I find Gears of War 2's campaign so captivating. The game really captures the sense of discovery as the Gears head deeper and deeper into Locust territory. There's always something new about the Locust to be learned, whether it be their torture barges or creepy architecture or so forth. They search the barges for more prisoners. Eventually they find Ty, the spiritual warrior. He lost his battle with Skorge, and he ended up in this cell. His body shows the story of what happened, of the untold terrors the Locust inflicted upon him. They need to get out, so Marcus hands him a gun. That was a mistake.
Ty! No!
The game's buildup of Ty as an invincible warrior has its payoff here. Even a man such as he can be cut down by the Horde. One of the reasons Gears of War's story is so satisfying is that the game always lays seeds for big plot moments or revelations, even games in advance. Even Marcus the Unshakable is aghast by this. This circles back to his characterization in the game. His men, beyond all else, are his priority, so when something happens to them in particular, it makes sense that it would affect him the most. They head for extraction, and they fend off the LZ as Locusts converge. Fortunately, they make it onto the Raven, seemingly in the nick of time. They are far from the clear though. The Riftworm bursts onto the scene. Carmine falls off the Raven and plummets right into the Riftworm's mouth. The rest of the Gears follow, as the Riftworm consumes them all. An abrupt flashback follows. Dom is in bed, as Myrrah brings him breakfast. The game has been bleak and brutal, so the peace and joy in this flashback serves as a stark contrast. It's clear that this is all that Dom has ever wanted. By saving Myrrah, he hopes to have another moment like this someday. This right here is exactly what he's fighting for. Myrrah's gentle goading of him to wake up is interrupted by Marcus's rough command to do the same. Compared to her, his gravelly voice is like nails on a chalkboard.
Dom! Dom!
Dom, wake up!
It's a rude awakening, and it hurts even more knowing where the Gears are, the belly of a giant worm. Where others might see despair, Marcus sees opportunity.
This is what's sinking the cities. This is our chance to stop it.
And how the hell are we supposed to do that?
Rip its goddamn heart out. Come on, let's move.
There's an undercurrent of rage in his voice. He wants to kill this thing, not only for Jacinto's sake, but also as revenge for his fallen brethren. Ty's death is still so fresh. Another death soon follows. They find the young Carmine, and there's no saving him. His final wish of Marcus telling his family that he loves them is especially painful, since we witnessed the loss of his brother already in the prior game. You wonder just how many more kids this poor family is going to lose. This serves as even more motivation to kill this foul creature. The next segment is one of the weirdest and most interesting in the game. The Gears make their way through the beast in search of its heart, and they have to survive the various workings of its digestive system. Remember back to when I said that Gears 2 nails that feeling of exploration? Well, here's the most extreme example of that. There's hardly any shooting here, yet it remains engaging. Marcus and the gang have to time sprints through grinding teeth, snake their way through toxic intestines before they suffocate, and so forth. It's like a nasty obstacle course. In fact, this prolonged break from shooting does wonders for the game's pacing. The campaign before and afterwards has such tense and frequent gunfights that a midway break serves as a great reset. They cut through the worm's heart, only to discover that it has multiple of them. For a beast so large, it makes sense. The segment ends with the Gears cutting through the worm's remaining hearts, as the space fills with blood. They have to complete the task before drowning. This area naturally is dominated by red, and it demonstrates how Gears 2's color palette has a wider variety than the first title. After the final artery is cut, the worm is vanquished. The immediate threat to Jacinto is quelled, and Marcus radios command.
Control! Delta here. We just, I don't know where to even begin, but just get us the hell out of here.
When Marcus Phoenix of all people is shaken twice in one day, you know that it's been quite the day. Sadly, there's no rest awaiting the Gears. Command immediately dispatches them on another mission. They're ordered to investigate a newly declassified COG outpost, which may contain leads on the Locust stronghold and their queen. The Gears understandably are very sketched out by this order. If Hoffman didn't even know about this place, then what on earth could it contain? The intrigue deepens. As soon as the Riftworm subplot ended, the story immediately creates new suspense with this mystery outpost. Gears 2's pacing with its plot manages to create this unrelenting, ever-racing feel, which is apt given the stakes of the story. A heavy thunderstorm rumbles as the Gears roll up to the facility. The thunder adds to the creepy atmosphere this decrepit compound instills. Up until now, Gears of War has adopted a more action-oriented tone than its predecessor. The color palette has been brighter and more varied. The focus has been on scale and set pieces rather than leveraging the same horror suspense. This act of the campaign feels like a return to that old tone. Because the rest of the game has been more action-oriented, in some ways it hits even harder due to the contrast. Initially they only encounter some wretches, which is unsettling. The place feels altogether too still. You get the bad feeling that something far worse awaits within. They don't have authorization to get through the front door, so they decide to blow it up.
Welcome back. Do you now have proper identification?
Oh yeah, I got some identification for you.
As I touched on earlier, it's nice to see that despite everything Marcus has endured, he hasn't lost his smarmy sense of humor. It's one of the reasons the guy is so likable and easy to root for. Once they get in, the strange entity at the door introduces itself.
Welcome to the New Hope Research Facility. I'm Niles. Please, let me know if I can be of any assistance.
This Niles' politeness is uncanny, given the decrepit state of the facility. His presence contributes to the creepiness of the level. The Gears become even more suspicious of the COG, and they wonder what this facility was being used for. Logs around the environment enhance the dread even further, documenting experiments gone wrong and test subjects growing even more violent. The Gears encounter hostile turrets. These make for interesting gameplay encounters, where you have to avoid them while also contending with wretches. Furthermore, the turrets tell us more about this place. These defenses aren't designed to keep prisoners in, rather they're designed to keep people out. It reinforces that the secrets this facility holds are vital for the chairman to contain, even from someone as high up as Hoffman. They come across stasis tanks that contain strange creatures. Evidently they're the test subjects. They're not quite human, nor are they any type of locust we recognize. Things are growing even more bizarre. The Gears find a terminal, and they listen to a recording left by the real Niles. Whatever experiments went on here, Niles believed they were crucial in saving the children, or in other words, saving the future. Given what we've seen, this doesn't quite compute. How could these mangled monsters save humanity? Were they the end goal, or did something go horribly wrong? It appears Niles and the other researchers journeyed to Mount Kadar, taking subjects with them. He left an automated security system modeled after himself to watch over the facility. What happened here is still very unclear, but it appears that Mount Kadar is the next destination in their mission. By powering up the terminal, they also inadvertently unleash the sires from their stasis chambers. The Gears frantically make their escape, fighting these abominable things. The sires aren't too hard of enemies. They're kind of like big wretches, charging you and clawing. However, they're pretty swift, and they come in swarms. What really elevates this segment is the creepy atmosphere that the environment and story have created. It makes the sires feel even more intimidating than the threat they present purely through gameplay. Once they're clear of the sires, they encounter Locust. The Gears battle through them as the thunderstorm evolves into a razor hailstorm. As the name suggests, it's sharp blade-like hail that is deadly with prolonged exposure. The Gears must navigate from shelter to shelter in order to reach the Centaur. This is one of my favorite segments in the game for a few reasons. First off, the razor hail is a very unique weather phenomenon to Sarah, yet the Gears don't treat it with much fanfare. It speaks to just how rough of a planet Sarah is. Even without the Locust, it can be quite a miserable place to live. It elevates the dour atmosphere of the level, and it adds tension and desperation to the final stretch of their escape. Furthermore, the razor hail is a great environmental hazard, and this segment leverages that to create a handful of really interesting combat encounters. This is another example of how Gears 2 uses set pieces creatively to inject variety into the battles. The Gears journey to Mount Kadar and the Centaur. This is a pretty long vehicle segment that serves as a break from normal gameplay, just like the Riftworm segment. As I mentioned, the pacing of these breaks throughout the campaign is really well done. With that said, I'm not the biggest fan of the Centaur section. The Centaur is super clunky to navigate. It turns slowly, and any finer movements become frustrating. Since the Centaur is a tank, this would be fair enough. However, there are multiple segments where you have to cross icy lakes while locusts are blowing holes in it. This requires two things. Quick reactions because the ice holes can suddenly appear just a couple feet in front of the tank. Also, it requires precise movement because the safe path can be relatively narrow. The tank is pretty bad at both quick and precise movement. and there were multiple times where a hole was blown right in front of my path, and I couldn't slow down in time to avoid it. These sections are frustrating experiments in trial and error. Fortunately, this segment of the game is very generous with its checkpoints, and this alleviates the frustration significantly. This all isn't to say the Centaur segment doesn't have things going for it. It's very cinematic, and it successfully captures the urgency of your mission. You feel the build-up of the story in real time as Delta approaches Mount Kadar. There's even a great moment where you come across a broken bridge, and you have to jump the gap from the nearby woods. They enter Mount Kadar, weaving through a cave network as they try to locate the Locust stronghold. Here, there are some great moments with Brumax and Corpsers, and the game uses the darkness expertly to create tension. The Gears encounter a surprisingly familiar face. There is a group of Stranded led by Chap, the gas station guy from the first game. He's still bitter about what happened at his gas station, which is honestly fair.
What the hell are you doing down here?
Well, after you jackasses blew up my station and Franklin's outpost got overrun, the surface wasn't safe no more.
He points them towards the Nexus, the place that the Locusts come from. Marcus makes a decision.
Cole, Baird, I want you to take these people up to the surface. Dom and I will continue on foot.
What? But
They're gonna die otherwise.
This is another demonstration of his character. He always prioritizes the safety of individuals, even at the cost of the mission. Marcus is putting himself and Dom in significantly more jeopardy along with the mission by diverting his men to help with the Stranded. Yet he does so anyway, for the very simple reason that the Stranded will die otherwise. His kindness to these strangers shows that despite his callousness and despite his gruffness, there's a very caring heart that lies within him. And it's this contrast between his exterior nature and the kindness of his actions which makes him so compelling. The Stranded are skeptical. They don't want to be conscripted, like Dizzy was. Their fear of the Cog is even more understandable after we witness the foul experiments in the secret lab. Marcus promises them safety, and with everything settled, he and Dom head for the Nexus. The view of the caverns is pretty incredible. They seem to stretch on for miles and miles. It makes you wonder just how many Locusts could be lurking within this Nexus. They have to cross the lake, so they head for a docked boat. The Locusts destroy it, but that doesn't deter the Gears. They ride across the lake on the detached dock and eventually pirate a Locust gunboat. All the while, they're fending off Locust. It's a cool gameplay segment. The movement of the waves throws off your aim, and it gives a different feel to the shooting. During this segment, the Gears encounter emulsion fumes, and the Locusts abruptly stop pursuing them. It's odd to see the Locust afraid of anything, and this is laying the narrative seeds for a revelation later. The boat segment ends with a fight against a giant Locust monster. It's a pretty simple fight, just consisting of shooting its tentacles and lobbing a grenade down its throat, but it's cinematic and a good way to cap off the segment. They reach a road leading to the Nexus. It's very ominous. Tense music plays, and reddish-yellow smoke adds to the dangerous atmosphere. It uses the same visual motifs as the emulsion mine from Gears 1. The stalagmites and stalactites are jagged, and they're arranged to look like teeth. We are descending into the jaws of the beast. They go through a passage, and on the other side, the cavern expands to a truly breathtaking size. I know I've mentioned it many times, but scale is such a huge part of Gears 2's visual language. They encounter a large movement of Locust troops. Dom figures that the road leads to the Nexus, and Marcus wants to follow them. Dom has other plans.
Wait, Marcus. The old guy said we had to branch off the highway at the dam.
Look, we need to stick to the mission. We have no idea if Maria's down here, and
I need to know. You don't have to go with me, all right?
Damn it. That's just gonna get us both killed. We need to get into the stronghold and activate the beacon. This is it, Dom. This is everything we've been fighting for.
Yeah? Well, Maria's everything I've been fighting for. She's my fucking wife, all right?
So you gonna turn your back on your whole world, then? The other Gears we fought with? All the people who've died?
I'm sorry, Marcus. After what you did for your father, I thought you'd understand.
Dom, wait up.
This scene, perhaps more than any other in the game, exemplifies Marcus's character and his priorities. He knows their mission is critical to the survival of humanity. He knows it's much more important than finding Dom's wife. Yet he knows that Dom's determination is unshakable. Marcus won't abandon a friend, under any circumstances, even if it means leaving the world in jeopardy. loyalty is his most powerful virtue. They discover human labor camps. Slaves are grinding away with pickaxes. It appears that Locust have been abducting humans for labor. That puts the immense scale of the Locust stronghold in a different light. It makes you wonder just how much of it was constructed by human hands. I really enjoyed exploring the Nexus because the environment gives us a glimpse of Locust culture. The buildings are adorned with tons of decorations in the form of glyphs and patterns. It's crude, yet this artistry nonetheless speaks to a greater sophistication than one would have assumed. Likewise, they have technology like floodgates, elevators, and so forth. The environmental storytelling subtly hints that perhaps the Locusts aren't quite as different from the humans as we thought. Dom and Marcus find a computer terminal and Dom searches up Myrrah. He finds her in the Locust database and she appears to be somewhere signified by a glyph. They reach a cavern filled to the brim with cages, much like the one Baird had been trapped in. The extent of the Locust kidnappings is disturbing. The unsettling feeling is amplified by the sounds of human groans as you pass by the cages. Furthermore, the dread builds, as these sights don't bode well for Myrrah. They push through area after area, searching for this specific glyph. Once they find it, they comb through the cages. At long last, Dom reunites with his wife.
Myrrah.
Dom.
No, baby. No. What did they do to you? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Myrrah. I tried to find you. God, I did. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
No. It's okay.
His outbursts of confusion and despair is what truly makes this scene work. He's been a man with a singular mission throughout the entire game. His purpose has been to find his wife. Now that he's found her like this, his entire world is torn apart. He has no ground underneath him anymore and he panics, seeking solace from the friend who's always been steadfast. The scene captures a very human mix of emotions, and that is what makes it ring authentically. Marcus gives Dom time to process his grief, at least as much as he can afford in the situation. Once Dom is ready to move, he, Marcus, and the player are all aligned in motivation.
I want to kill them all.
They fight through hordes of the enemy, and there's a certain catharsis in Dom getting immediate revenge, at least in small doses. However, it feels a bit strange that Marcus and Dom can fight single-handedly through the Locust stronghold. Why are they running only into small squads of Locusts instead of a massive force converging on them? The Queen even encourages her soldiers not to give up.
Keep fighting, my children. Your queen is with you. They can be stopped. Don't give in.
Why would she have to encourage her soldiers when they're fighting two lone gears? With how big of a threat the Locusts have been throughout the series, it doesn't feel right. They find a place to call in reinforcements, and Delta is finally reunited. Together they make for the palace, hunting the Queen. They stumble across an unexpected fight. The Locusts are shooting at each other. The Queen's army is fighting against the Lambent, which are Locusts afflicted by an infection. We saw Lambent variants of wretches in the first game, but it appears that the sickness can go beyond them.
The Lambent are inferior. The plague must be stopped.
This makes all the oddities within the stronghold begin to make sense. Even Baird was wondering why they were doing so well. Delta's only been fighting small squads, and thus making headway, because the Locust's attention is split between them and the Lambent. The Queen's encouragement wasn't directed towards the battle against a few puny humans. Rather, she was encouraging her troops as they fought the Lambent. Marcus has a revelation.
They're desperate. All this time, we never realized that.
The Locusts are desperate. This harkens back all the way to the beginning of the game, when the Locusts were raiding the hospital in a suicide run. Cole gets a hold of the loudspeaker system, and he has some choice words for the Locust. This is a pretty hilarious moment, and it's a reminder of how great Gears' supporting cast is. This game has such a focus on Dom and Marcus, and I do wish Baird and Cole would have been given slightly more screen time. Jack taps into a computer terminal and the squad uncovers new revelations.
If we were to sink Jacinto, it would flood the hollow with seawater. Nothing below would survive. We could end the war today, but only if we sacrifice our last possible refuge.
Who's that talking?
Adam Phoenix.
It's my father.
The first game established a mystery around Adam Phoenix, and the intrigue only builds here. Why is Adam Phoenix so integrated into the Locust system? Unfortunately, the Gears don't have the luxury of pondering this. The Queen wants to sink Jacinto not only to eliminate the humans, but also to destroy the Lambent. Ironically, Marcus proposes the same plan, only they want to sink Jacinto before the Locusts evacuate. The other Gears are skeptical. With that, they return to Plan A, finding the Queen. After some more fighting, they do just that. At last, they have an audience with the Queen. To the Gears' surprise, she is very human looking, attractive even. This adds even more intrigue to the Locust. Like the architectural and cultural complexity of the city, her humanity implies that the Locusts are more complicated than they originally seemed. There is some unexplained history behind them, and it all seems tied to Adam Phoenix somehow. In fact, she knows Adam Phoenix personally, and even seems to have respect for him.
Tell me, is it true? You're the son of Adam Phoenix.
What's it to you?
He spoke highly of you. It's a shame that you didn't follow his path.
The hell are you talking about?
It no longer matters.
These are really compelling questions, but the game doesn't delve into them. Instead, these questions are being teed up for the third game. Just like Gears 1, the sequel has the patience to lay ample narrative ground for the next installment to explore. The Queen leaves Skorge to kill them. Thus begins a boss fight. It's somewhat reminiscent to Ram, fighting a Locust warrior, known for his intimidation and power. The Skorge fight is fairly simple. You just have to dodge out of the way as he drops pillars onto you, and win chainsaw duels when he lunges. Overall though, I'd say that it's an improvement over Ram. It's definitely not frustrating, which is a win. Boss fights have never really been the series' strength, so I'm not being super hard on it. Skorge boards his Hydra and departs. The Gears need to find their way out quickly. Time is running out. They need to sink Jacinto before the Locusts can react. They find some Reavers and ride them out. They come across Gears being overwhelmed by Locusts. Despite the urgency of their mission, Marcus delays it to help his fellow soldiers. To him, it's not even a question. This is yet another example where the game is demonstrating Marcus's priorities. The pacing of this escape is incredible. It captures a pulse-pounding franticness, especially when the Hydra emerges within the dark caverns. It keeps lurching forward, poised to eat the Gears, and only a properly aimed barrage of gunfire keeps it at bay. They breach the surface and race to Jacinto, all while the Hydra and accompanying Reavers give chase. Eventually, they manage to take them all down, including the Hydra. When the massive beast falls, Skorge collides with the rocks and dies instantly. It's a bit of an anticlimactic death, given how much the game built him up. However, on the human side, Ty was built up as invincible and didn't go out in a blaze of glory, so I suppose it's payback. It feels just in a way. They reach Jacinto and regroup with Control. Hoffman and Anya give them a status update.
We've evacuated most of Jacinto, but we still need more time to evac Gears from the Hollow.
Do we have a plan to sink Jacinto?
Almost. We're finalizing the logistics now.
The defense of Jacinto is epic. The game keeps up the same pressure and tempo as the chase scene, and you feel like you're on an absolute ride as the conclusion approaches. With how big, cinematic, and fast-paced Gears 2 has been ever since the beginning, it would have been easy for the game to drop the ball in its final act and deliver something that felt underwhelming in comparison. However, the campaign somehow continues to ramp up, and it delivers a final act that feels truly worthy of the rest of the game. When the immediate threat is dealt with, Delta reconvenes with Control.
We've identified an underground cavern near the Locust sinkhole. We believe that a strategically placed light mass bomb can give Jacinto its final push.
What's the catch?
Due to Cedar and Nemesis infestation, we're unable to get a chopper down there to deliver the bomb. We need someone to clear the target area.
And by someone, you mean us. Baird, Cole, I want you two to assist with the light mass bomb. Dom, looks like we're heading back underground.
On the way, there's a really good courtyard fight. The design of it is more in the Gears 1 style that I described earlier. It's circular with many paths that the Locust can navigate. It gives ample room for wretches and tickers to flank and catch you off guard, forcing you to move. Overall, it's a very dynamic battle. It makes me wish for even more encounters like this throughout the game. They push through more forces and engage in some heavy street fighting. They get their hands on a Hammer of Dawn, the awesome satellite laser from the first title. And while it's a lot of fun, it's hard not to enjoy using it. When they reach the sinkhole, a truly apocalyptic sight greets them. The city is blanketed in smoke. The imagery is a reminder of what's at stake. The entire world will fall if Marcus and Dom fail. They descend into the sinkhole, and there's some pretty creative combat segments here. Locust use grappling hooks to climb onto the roofs, and therefore they can appear from unexpected angles. In fact, the mechanic is akin to the emergence holes. It provides the Locust a way to spawn pretty much anywhere. They come across a Brumak, which blows out the building they're in. However, the Gears use the wreckage to their advantage, flanking the Brumak. They kill the pilot, but before killing the Brumak, Marcus has an idea.
We could ride it. Speed this whole operation up.
Reavers were one thing, but a Brumak?
They can ride them, so can we.
Honestly, with all the beasts that Marcus and Dom have piloted, they're pretty much honorary Locusts at this point.
Control, Delta here. We hijacked the Brumak so that we can...
What?
We're riding a Brumak. We're gonna use it to clear the area faster.
Okay. Roger that, Delta. Keep us posted. Control out.
It's so funny to me how Anya just accepts that they've hijacked a Brumak. With all of the insane stunts Marcus has pulled off, I get why she would start to just take everything in stride. Their Brumak section is fun. The rocket salvo and the machine guns feel really powerful to use, and this segment feels like the turning point in the fight. I will say that the segment does stretch a little too long though, and it starts to overstay its welcome by the end. They destroy the cavern ceiling, giving the Ravens an opening to deliver the Lightmass bomb. They fly in to get Marcus and Dom off the Brumak. However, the beast steps into emulsion and goes berserk. It swats the Raven down, destroying the Lightmass bomb with it. Fortunately at least, Baird and Cole are in the other Raven. They pick up Marcus and Dom, and they try to figure out how to salvage the situation. They realize the Brumak isn't just going berserk, it's going Lambent. It seems the emulsion has a transformative effect on Locust. The game built up this revelation well. We saw hints of this, for example, when the Locust gave up chasing Marcus and Dom because they entered emulsion fumes. Just like the Lambent wretches, Marcus figures the Brumak will explode given the proper nudge.
Lambent? Is it exploding Lambent?
Yeah, like the wretches, but way bigger.
Then I think we've got our bomb.
He hits the Brumak with the Hammer of Dawn, causing the beast to go critical. They escape, flying as fast as they can to get out of the blast radius. Jacinto crumbles, and the hollow floods, just as the Gears planned. We see Locust fleeing, but they're unable to escape the floodwater. Humanity has won this day, albeit at a great cost. Their last refuge has fallen. Marcus's first thought upon witnessing the destruction is to contact Control. When Anya doesn't pick up, despair seeps into his voice and he uses her name.
Anya, come in! Anya!
All that you held dear, all that you held close, is washed away into the sea of distant memory.
I'm sorry, Marcus.
This scene is another piece of characterization for Marcus. It strongly implies that he has feelings for Anya. By the way that Dom comforts Marcus afterwards, it's clear that he knows of Marcus's feelings too. However, there's one bright spot this day. Anya emerges from the other helicopter and waves to them. Marcus's gruff mask immediately lifts back up. He doesn't even wave to her. Whatever feelings he has, he's going to stuff them all the way down until this war is concluded. During this segment, the Locust Queen gives a final speech. She speaks of great loss and tragedy, something that both the Locust and humanity can relate to. However, the end of her speech takes a turn. She speaks of legacy and how it's easy to leave behind one that isn't intended. It's a very mysterious and ominous way to end the game. It alludes to the mysteries of the past, namely Marcus's father and the Locust history. It's a reminder that this story isn't over, not yet, and I think it's the perfect way to conclude the second chapter of this trilogy. With that, we've reached the end of the campaign. Let's pull everything together. Gears of War 2 had the daunting task of following up a generational game. Somehow, Gears 2 managed to succeed with flying colors. The plot is fast-paced, and it's gripping from the start to end. The story works superbly as the middle installment in the series. More of the world is explored, and there's a true sense of discovery moving from act to act. Questions from the first game are expanded upon, such as the mystery surrounding Marcus's father, yet these questions aren't fully answered. Rather, even more narrative seeds are planted for the trilogy's conclusion. Marcus and Dom have great characterization, and they're explored with more nuance. Dom's search for his wife is the heart of the story, while Marcus's more subtle characterization demonstrated through his actions serves to make him an even more compelling protagonist to root for. I do wish Baird and Cole would have had more screen time, but that is more so a testament to how likable they are rather than a fault of the game. The gameplay improvements are vast. The formula is both refined and expanded upon, with improvements ranging from allied behavior to enemy variety. Because of this almost universal improvement, Gears 2 truly lives up to being a sequel. It's bigger and bolder in all the best ways. However, with all of that said, there are still unique things to appreciate about Gears 1. Gears of War 2 moves in a more action-oriented direction, with a greater focus on adventure and less on instilling tension and fear. The color palette has been expanded, and it looks more visually pleasing, but it loses out slightly on the grimness of Gears 1. The encounter design too has changed to be more linear. Still, these are more preference things than true criticisms. Gears 2 is a monumental achievement that follows up another monumental achievement. I think you could make a compelling argument that it's the finest game Xbox has released. There are of course other contenders. Gears 2 had a high bar to reach, and it did so incredibly. What that means though is that Gears of War 3, the conclusion to this epic trilogy, had an even higher bar to reach. Can Gears 3 give the series the conclusion it deserves? Well, that's a story for another day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. Both really help the algorithm, especially on smaller channels like mine. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments too. Lastly, if you want to support me further, I'm also a science fiction writer. I have a post-apocalyptic series called the Northfield Saga. If you like Gears of War, I sincerely think you'd like my post-apocalyptic world. I have a link to the books in the description. Even one sale or a review goes a long way, so I would really appreciate your support. Either way, thanks again for watching the video. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time.